Are you scared, Connor?
No, Cousin Dougal, I'm not. Don't talk nonsense, man. I peed my kilt the first time I went into battle.
Aye. Angus pees his kilt all the time.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Highlander Rewatched. This is part 2 of our ongoing podcast series discussing the original Highlander motion picture. So, if you haven't heard part 1 yet, just go back on your podcast app or on SoundCloud or wherever you're listening and listen to part 1 of the series first, where we talk a lot about the behind-the-scenes info on the cast, the crew, and how we got into Highlander. I'm one of your rewatchers. I'm Keith.
This is Kyle. I'm another one of your rewatchers.
And this is Eamon.
And this podcast is all about our love of all things Highlander. So make sure to subscribe on iTunes or any major podcasting app and join us, your rewatchers, as we revisit the Highlander motion pictures, the series, books, comics, video games, and more. Okay, let's get back into part 2 of our discussion of Highlander, the motion picture. So after this fight, the main character, who we don't know anything about yet,
Zero about him.
he stuffs his sword into like a metal grate. That's
Yeah,
like
he hears sirens and he's like, uh-oh.
Yes. So he ditches the sword.
Yeah.
And he runs off. And then the camera pans up, and it's this really awesome transition where it goes kind of through the ceiling of the garage. On the other side, it is the Scottish Highlands.
Yep.
This is awesome. I think this is a fantastic opening to a movie. This is so good.
Like, it's visually arresting. It's really cool. I'm, like, very into it. I think I remembered how well shot and kind of executed a lot of the technical aspects of this movie were. And that's something I got a pretty hearty appreciation for these last 2 times.
Yeah, I think it's good.
But I also don't think I had ever stopped and tried to think about it from a position of someone with no information before. And I think that's something that's like a little confusing.
So we're in 1536 in Scotland.
So this is on location, much like the TV show. We talked a lot about when the TV show moves from like Vancouver or Seacouver in the show to Paris, like it gets a lot better. Like I think all this Scotland like on location stuff is fantastic. It's like the costuming is great. Like the extras all look awesome.
Yeah.
If they weren't shooting on location, if these were sets or something, like I don't think this movie would have nearly the impact that it does. Like these flashbacks really add, I think, a lot of depth to it. But.
Yeah. And to speak to what you said about the Madison Square Garden shots, like they pack these shots. Like they do not skimp on extras. Like a lot of movies, especially a kind of independent movie like this, would feel kind of empty a lot of times.
Yeah.
Not a thing that this movie suffers from. Like things are packed, shots are dense. It's great.
Especially because it's not a real wrestling match. That's the thing that's great. Like, it's not like they just brought the camera crew and were like, let's get some pickup shots of like a real crowd. Like, they brought all those people are there for this movie, like, which is really cool.
Yeah, which, if these were real wrestling fans, I'd be especially terrified. But
great extras in that wrestling thing. I know we're going backwards a little bit, but like the one dude with like the hockey mask had like paint on it and shit. It was really good.
So this is filmed at a real castle in Scotland. And speaking of the extras, apparently a lot of them were, I think, students at the University of Edinburgh.
Huh.
Neat.
And I guess they were great extras because since they were young students, they all had long hair.
That's awesome.
And like
that's
beards
perfect.
and stuff. So they were able to be used. And I think they got paid like $10 a day to be there, and a lot of scotch.
Ooh,
so, yeah,
that sounds good. So we're watching this line of Scotsmen chanting MacLeod, and we know our hero's name is MacLeod. So if you're paying attention, maybe you make that connection.
Yeah, which also we now get to hear the 4th and 5th words from Christopher Lambert, which are the word MacLeod.
Yep.
And we get like this, like rather than doing like a title card or something like that, they have this kind of priest who's leading this group of men off to battle. Say, like,
giant,
and this,
with a giant cross in his hand. So this is our, I guess, second like cross image in the past like 30 seconds, really.
Yeah. And he says, like, in this year of our Lord, 1536.
Yeah.
Also, there's a bagpipe player who looks like Matt Walsh. Like, it's a dead ringer. Like, I had to pause and be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
they're like, victory to the Clan MacLeod, and his cousin, asks him if he's scared. His cousin, Dougal. Dougal. I don't know
Dougal
anything about
and
the
his best friend, Angus.
Yeah.
Dougal and Angus, Connor's right-hand man.
I was going to say, Dougal asks if Connor's scared, and he says no. And then Angus says Dougal pees his kilt all the time? Is that...
No, Angus says, I peed my kilt my first time in battle. And Dougal responds, he pees his kilt all the time.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
That was funny.
Yeah.
So then this woman comes up, who we later find out her name is Kate, I think. I don't remember when they actually mention her name. I think it's mentioned at some point.
They do.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So Kate comes up and I guess gives him some flowers, right?
Mm-hmm. And they smooch. I don't know if they're like married or...
I'm assuming it's like a girlfriend or
Yeah.
something. This is also cut from the US version.
Huh.
This like, so there's the interaction with Dougal and Angus, and then it just leaps forward after that. This is, again, an important thing, because I think later we'll find out she kind of disavows and Connor.
Yeah.
and it's like hard to
And
watch.
it's really harsh,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
it's not that bad unless... Like
This part's
you find
here,
out that
yeah.
like they used to be in love, like,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, like this is just some like asshole like telling you you're a devil person. Like this makes it a lot better. So also another Christian image in the background. The cross on top of the church is on fire. Which I thought was interesting. And actually, apparently burning crosses in Scotland were a way to rally the troops. So people would bring a burning cross to like a village or a clan and say, like, that was the call to arms, was a burning cross.
Oh, like, go get your sword?
Like, go get your sword
Wow.
is the burning cross.
I didn't notice that. That's
yeah, which I
cool.
thought was
Yeah.
cool. Like, again, it's another Christian image, but also it is a, like, kind of historically accurate little tidbit that's thrown in there, which is pretty cool.
They don't exactly say it right now. They kind of allude to what this is later. They're about to go fight a battle against a rival clan, the Phrases, which we're about to see.
Yeah. So the next scene is, I guess, like, right before the battle starts. There's a mysterious dark figure on a mountain.
Yeah, who looks so goddamn badass.
It's
This
awesome.
skull helm he's wearing
Yeah.
like I don't even know what, like a tiger skull for a helmet. It looks like a cat skull because it's got like fangs.
Yeah. I will say it's a dragon. I don't think it's a real skull. I think it is kind of like a fabricated thing. But I'll get into more of the dragon stuff later.
Yeah, I agree that if it was a real thing, it's probably a cat. But I buy into your notion that it might be of some fantasy creature.
Yeah.
It's a really cool, like, scary suit of armor.
Yeah, he's got like skulls on the shoulder pads. It's got like this body framed, like his breastplate has abs.
Yeah, and so I'll mention. So the villain. This as we assume we'll find out is the villain of the story, the Kurgan, who we only see kind of in the background with more lightning, of course. As you mentioned, his armor is all skulls, but I think there's another bit of kind of imagery here, which is, if you look closely, his armor is actually snakeskin, which I thought is interesting because, again, like in the Bible, the snake is typically the devil, or there's this other like element, which is this dragon element, which I think is maybe a little more prevalent for the Kurgan more than the snake devil thing. But I think that's kind of what's going on here. So I thought there was this interesting dynamic if we view it as this kind of Christian allegory, is like if Connor's the good, Kurgan is the devil in this scenario, which is exemplified by being a reptile or whatever.
Which again, I will advance the position that Connor is not the good. He's the okay.
Yeah.
So standing with the Kurgan is Murdoch, who I guess is the leader of this rival clan, and they have a deal.
There is one called Connor among them.
Aye.
Remember our agreement, Murdoch. The boy is mine.
It's begun! Death to the MacLeod!
So yeah, it's interesting that this person is after Connor. Like, he knows who he is, even though the audience doesn't at this point.
We should pause on this for a second, right? Because at this point, Connor does not know that he's immortal. He doesn't know anything. But apparently the villain of the story does. Not only that, like, he's known. Like, he's somehow arranged this situation so he can fight him. Like, he has a lot of information.
Right, like, he is not part of this clan, the Frasers or whatever. Like, he is a third party that is, like, antagonizing this battle, presumably. Only for the goal of, I just need a reason to face him.
Right.
Or to draw him out or whatever.
So this is very odd. It's like, how does he know? And then later, Sean Connery's character Ramirez also knows.
Right.
And, like, specifically seeks out Connor again for the purpose of helping him. What is going on here? Like, how do people know about this?
And obviously, you know, this is, 1536, so the Kurgan isn't stalking Connor on Facebook or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Connor didn't write, lol, chopped my hand off and it grew back.
Yeah.
LOL. Like, that didn't happen.
Right. So it confused me, knowing now what I know about Highlander, just season 1 even.
Right.
I'm like, wait, what? Like, how does he know about
again,
Connor?
Like you said, Kyle, like, there's a lot more magical... Like, it's like, I guess you just take it for granted. Like, it's like, okay, like, that's fine. He knows.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Which I'm happy to do. But it is just, like, a little jarring in terms of the... Because also, we don't have a window into the people who are having these insights. Like, we never hear Connor say, like, oh, I just know something.
Right.
Like, we never get him explaining even a magical non-explanation. Never comes.
Yeah, it's just no explanation.
Yeah,
ever.
it's just third parties have this information, and you just go with it. And we should revisit this issue when it comes up on the show, because there are points in the show where they deal with people who are kind of on the cusp of becoming immortal, and we should refer back to this when we get there,
Totally.
so we can contrast the two approaches. But it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the battle commences, and Connor's trying to, you know, get his fight on, and basically everybody's avoiding him. Nobody is facing him, and he's kind of disappointed by this.
And this whole fight scene, again, just talking about, like, the information deficit that we have right now. Did anyone look at the banners?
No. I noticed they were there, and I didn't
Yeah.
pay too much mind.
So, unless I'm understanding this wrong, the Phrases banner is, like, a green border with 3, like, white roses on it. That appears to be their banner. I'm pretty sure the McLeod banner is like a flaming mountain with cow skulls on it.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure the way they shoot it, I don't know if it's just confusing and that's supposed to be the rival clan.
So that would make more
But
sense.
again,
Yeah.
we don't know, just trying to take myself out of this and realize I don't know who Mac is at this point. If I see 2 armies meeting and someone just says, who's the good guy? Flaming cow skulls, or, Flaming Mountain with cow skull, or white roses? I'm saying white roses.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just confusing the way that's shot and it's
Yeah.
supposed to be the Phrases.
I'm going to have to look at that. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense that it would be the other way around.
Yeah.
Huh.
But again, like, this is another weird image that's like, are we dealing with the good guy? Are we supposed to be actually thinking Connor's a hero?
I was also going to say, I mean, just, you mentioned these, like, extreme images that you see. That's, I think, a big, like, music video takeaway from this movie. Is, like, music videos have just, like, images thrown at you. And that was actually one of Russell McKay's, like, contributions to the genre, was, like, music videos earlier on were just, like, footage, basically, of a band playing. But he was one of, like, the forerunners to, like, introduce some abstraction to the whole idea. And it's like, oh, can we put a new narrative on top of this just through imagery? And I feel like there's a lot of just very strong images in this movie just for the sake of imagery. So, the Kurgan, who we later find out his name, we don't know his name yet, the mysterious Dark Knight.
Yeah,
Or
the
whatever.
Dark Knight.
The Knight, which is actually the original name, I believe, of the
Yeah,
script.
the Knight, yeah.
Named after him, I guess, right?
And sort of bad.
Sort of bad.
Yeah.
And also, the...
Which was sword of bad. Three separate words. So when you said it fast, it was sort of bad.
right?
The prequel to Superbad.
And also, I think this movie was at some point known as Shadow Clan,
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
which is kind of a fun... I think that's a fun...
Yeah, it's like this shadow organization of
Yeah.
people fighting.
Yeah.
Fight Club. I love this battle scene.
Yeah.
Because of how unglamorous it is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really
It
good.
is, like, just speaking to the notion of this PTSD almost kind of theme that you raised, this is savage.
Yep.
Like, there's one scene where 2 guys drown a third guy, like,
Yeah.
in a puddle.
Yeah.
Like, they literally kill this guy with mud. At one point, the priest
Yeah,
that we see
that's
at the
my
beginning
favorite
cuts a
part.
dude's throat.
Yep.
And he's like,
then he
forgive
crosses
me,
himself.
my son. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good battle.
Yeah.
It's good. And again, the costuming is great. Like, this feels bigger than the movie's budget does.
Yes, they're carving out something here, because this is fantasy, but it's not it's got this even this scene has this very 80s feel. Like, this isn't glamorous fantasy. Like, just speaking to, the writer, he wasn't just like, oh, what a magical time. He's like, yeah, this guy, when he rode into battle, had to pee in that. Like, because he couldn't take it off. Like,
Although, actually, he probably wouldn't have, because the kilt wasn't invented yet. So, actually, I was looking this up. If this fight was, like, real at this point, and what's your
1536.
1537, all of these people would just be naked. Probably not even fighting with swords, but just big sticks. And that would kind of be what's going on here.
What?
Yeah. So the kilt wasn't invented until 1720. So a lot of I guess it was tradition to go into battle nude.
Wow.
And that's I guess what the historically accurate Highlander would look like.
Well, I can see why they didn't show that.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't.
Maybe just change the year? I don't know.
So the fight is really awesome, but then eventually the villain and the hero meet on the battlefield. This guy is huge. The Kurgan Clancy Brown is a monster of a man, and he instantly takes down Connor.
I wish there was at least a little bit of a fight here.
Yeah.
Not much, but like... He's
you
like,
don't get much info here.
Like, there's no interaction. It's just like, he's like, I'll fight you, stab through the heart.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even get like one parry in. Like,
No.
he just gets stabbed.
Well, he's scared shitless of the Kurgan, which of course you would be.
Right.
He's just like, holy mother of God, or something
Right.
like that when he sees him roll up on his black stallion.
So I wanted to talk about this a little bit, again, from maybe this Christian reading. We're just confronted with these two images, which is previously we've seen Connor pose in a Christ position and some Christ imagery on his side. And then we've seen this Kurgan character with skulls, death, snakeskin, dragon imagery. So it's like, all right, there are these two kind of classic mythological views of good and evil here. After he incapacitates MacLeod and he's going to take his head, which is the only way to kill an immortal, he says there can be only one. And so I was actually kind of wondering if this is, again, this religious idea of, like, are there two deities battling each other out? And there can't be one kind of god. Like, there are these two ideas here. And so that the phrase there can be only one could be interpreted that way. I have another way to interpret it, but I won't get till about an hour and 51 minutes into this movie, which is when it ends. But
So it's literally like this God versus the devil battle.
exactly.
My biggest problem with this interpretation,
Sure.
just to lay it out now,
Fine.
is Connor is not good enough.
I have
This
problems with that.
this
as well.
doesn't feel like a good versus evil battle because I'm just not convinced that he's that good of a guy.
Yeah, we haven't seen much from him yet, other than them maybe telling us he's good, or just they haven't even told us he's good. They've just shown us an extreme evil, presumably.
Yeah.
By
Yes.
like skulls and death and stuff. So by de facto, he's like good.
Yeah, so just to pause again on this whole plan for a second that the Kurgan has to fight Connor, I'm going to go ahead and say that the worst place for an immortal fight is a 16th century battlefield, right? Because you've got presumably a bunch of drunk clansmen, because also back in the day, it was very much so a tradition to get hammered before you fought, because... how else would you be willing to walk into a fight and get stabbed?
Which these extras were definitely doing.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
the commentary, they talked about how, again, they weren't paid much. They were all young kids. They would just drink a bottle of scotch, get drunk, and then wake up the next morning at 5 to work. So they were all kind of plastered here.
So, literally, you're surrounded by people with swords. And not just any kind of swords, like giant, like two-handed swords. There is a very non-zero chance someone's going to attempt to cut your head off at some point. Like, you might lose your head just naturally to a mortal on this fight scene. Especially if you stop for a second and have to have this intense immortal orgasm in the middle of this field. Like, if he successfully takes Connor's head, he's just going to be sitting there like, well, all of his best friends are around you.
Yeah.
Who might just be like, oh, let's cut his head off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that's a thing that we might want to do.
Right.
Also, weird side note, this is the only fight that really goes on where there are no artificial structures around. Like, literally zero. Would the hillside have exploded? What would have happened?
Yeah.
Like, but then again, just feeding into this thing, it's almost as though the environment knows whether or not a fight is going to resolve.
Yeah.
Like, there's this preordained quality to it. Like, in some sense, viewing it in the context of this movie, the environment is not reactive enough for there to be a quickening now.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Some weird thoughts on that. But
I like your
That's
thoughts on that.
Yeah, those are all great
I really
points.
actually
Yeah.
like the electricity element of this stuff is, I think, really kind of interesting. Like, I think they could have even played it up more. Like, I'm a big David Lynch fan. David Lynch and electricity go together like American cheese and apple pie.
So that it's kind of weird, but some people really like it.
Yeah. But no, he uses like electrical stuff in his movies. Interestingly, like there's hums and like there's always these like tones in the background, and like I feel like if they had incorporated like a little Lynchian like element to this, like it could have been really cool. Like if Connor interacted with just the environment and things kind of hummed a little bit. Like there was just kind of an odd kind of magical quality to their presence. So the Kurgan does not take Connor's head
Because his friends all
tackle
him. They literally
Yeah.
drop their swords
Yeah.
to tackle him. You see Angus, he like houses a guy, drops his sword, and tackles the Kurgan. It's like, you might want that when you go try to attack the hugest dude on the battlefield. It's a little odd, but again,
Right.
it's neat. Like, they all freak out.
Yeah.
This is another moment that makes the subsequent betrayal when people reject Connor more poignant.
Right. Yeah.
Because this freak out moment that they have when they think their friend has just been killed, like, really seals that they have a real relationship.
Definitely,
Like,
yeah.
they're on a battlefield and they drop everything to go
to help him. Yeah, totally. And I like the line that the Kurgan says as he's being like drug away, which is like, "We'll meet another time."
Another time,
which
McLeod.
I think is nice
Yeah.
because it has like a kind of extra meaning, which is like not just like a little bit, like literally another time period. Which
Yeah.
I think is a fun little just nuance of that line, which is cool. So Connor is lying, essentially dying on the battlefield, and then the camera pulls away from him. Did anyone notice the film quality here changes drastically?
Yeah.
It gets like extremely grainy, and
Yeah.
so the camera pulls back, and then the transition back to the present is through his eye. It's because, and I was like, when I watched it, I was like, what's wrong with the video quality here? Like, I like put in the DVDs of the other version. Like, I was like, is this the same in every version? It is, and it's because I guess they were having trouble with the editing process, like getting this transition to work, like to pull out of his eye. So Russell McKay took it to like his music video crew to like handle some editing, and so they were able to do it. So they used like a rough cut of the film, and this was edited on video, not film. So it actually goes to like video stock.
Wow.
And then it goes back to film. So that's why it looks a little different. And if you're not familiar, of course, we're in 2016 where I don't know how many of our listeners even remember what a VCR is. Video is... It's a magnetic version of film. It's a little different, it has a different grain, sound quality is different.
And also, most important for these distinctions, it's very clean and successful to go from film to kind of HD quality productions.
Absolutely.
But it's very difficult when you have things that are shot on video to make them HD quality.
It's almost
it just
impossible.
it imposes a hard ceiling on it.
No, like if you have something like 70 millimeter film has like I think it's like a 6K resolution, which is like insane quality. Like where video is like nothing compared to that. Like so, there's almost no way to clean this up and make it look good.
Yeah. So the thing that makes it really rough when you see a lot of like 80s, 90s TV. A lot of that stuff was shot straight to video. So if you're trying to watch that on like a Blu-ray or something like that now, it's really not going to look that much better.
No.
Because they can't, it was shot on video, they can't salvage it. Whereas things that were shot on film, so there's almost this weird paradox where things like the original Star Trek that were shot in the 60s, now when they put them on Blu-ray, look so much better than things shot way later.
Right.
Because
Yeah, it's film.
it's film.
Yeah, it's more expensive and harder to do, but I think worth it. And it looks different too. Like there's a depth of field thing that's like video can't capture that. Like whatever. We're getting into technical shit here.
Hey Rewatchers, if you're into what you're listening to, take a second, go on iTunes and rate us. That's right, give us 5 stars on iTunes. That way other Rewatchers can join the conversation, hear what you have to say, and while you're at it, subscribe.
We're now back in 1985, as it were, when this movie was filmed. Which
And also where it takes place.
right, I actually...
When it takes place.
Yeah, the movie was released in 86. I was kind of wondering, did this movie sit on a shelf longer than intended because of the 1985 references? Like, they are constantly referring to it being 1985. But the movie was released in 86. And, like, typically when you make a movie, you kind of know when it's going to come out. So you know what I mean?
When
like,
it's only a year difference, I wouldn't read that much into it. Because, I mean, it's not uncommon, especially in this era, to take more than a year to make a movie.
No, but they didn't take long to make this movie. It was quick.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're back in 1985, and Connor is fleeing
This
Madison
parking
Square
lot, yeah.
Garden in his like Aston Martin.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand. He's like really booking it out of there. Like, I think the best move would have been just to go back to his seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like hang in the parking garage. Like you're literally surrounded by like tens of thousands of people, and instead he like flees in the most conspicuous way possible. Like
Right.
he's not even casually leaving.
No.
He is flooring it
Yeah.
out of there.
Well, the other thing is the cops are on their way to this place already. Why?
I
Because
don't
of
know.
because of the quickening, or what we're calling the quickening.
The sprinklers do go off, which we didn't
Yeah.
mention. So is it? Did a fire alarm get set off?
Probably.
Well, he hits
Most-
he hits that pipe in the sword fight, which
Right.
I think is what causes the sprinklers to go off.
Not to rewind too much.
Yeah.
So, especially because of that moment, at one point, Mac just makes an unforced error. Like, he is swinging his swords down and just hits a pipe. And
Yeah.
just like, "Meh," and like, ends up getting housed. Like, he gets like kicked or like,
Yep.
Right.
Vicini gets away or whatever the situation is. So, what was your opinion at this point in the movie in terms of like we're watching our action hero Connor McLeod? He's pretty ineffective. Like he's not like a badass. You know what I mean? Like just comparing him to Adrian Paul. There's no question at any point when you're seeing Highlander, like Adrian Paul is like a fit fighting machine.
Yeah.
Like he's
Super physical. Like there's
Yeah.
a martial arts element that's in the Highlander series that is not apparent in this at all.
even a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and the way he fights is like so kind of like rough and tumble. Like he doesn't like seem. We have a training montage later, but he doesn't seem like hyper trained.
Yeah.
He gets like beaten up a lot.
Yeah.
We've seen him be stabbed already. Like we've seen him been brutally stabbed. We've seen him lose his sword. We've seen him have these like unforced errors in the fight. I was sitting there at this point thinking like, this guy is not a badass at all. Like
Yeah.
this guy is like kind of an ordinary Joe. And like something about his appearance too feeds into that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. His
he
appearance
works
is
the
very
shower.
ordinary.
Yeah, his white tennis sneakers,
Yeah.
his
White tennis-
jeans,
his jeans that are too long, his ill-fitting trench coat.
His trench
Yeah.
coat is so rumpled.
and he has 5 o'clock shadow. Like he
Through the
needs
whole
a shave.
movie.
Yeah,
I was left. My impression of him is that he's like struggling to survive.
yeah.
Really, at this point in the movie, I don't know. I was just curious what your
Well,
thoughts
I
were at this
thought
point.
like when he was faced with Facil, he did seem like pretty calm. Like he was like, "All right, this is going to go down." He seemed ready.
Yeah, he never seems panicked, even when he's
Yeah.
like hiding behind the car. Like he doesn't seem like he's like,
Yeah.
lost
he's got a
his cool.
plan. Yeah,
Yeah, but he is.
I
He's
would
a
never
little.
say Connor McLeod is a badass. The most
Yeah.
badass thing about
No.
him is his
No.
stare.
Yeah.
That's a badass stare.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
but
is.
other than
It
that,
is.
like I don't know that we see him do anything that physical or like that impressive that you're like, this man is like super threatening in that
Yeah,
regard.
I don't know if I never read that much into it. Like I just kind of figured like, well, it's a low budget kind of movie. Choreography is kind of done kind of quick. You know what I mean? Like those sort of things. But
No, but I saw like when you see the Kurgan and Facile, even Facile, I'm like, these are dangerous
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Like these are highly trained, dangerous people. And maybe even the backflips feed into that.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
Yeah,
Like they are warriors. When I see Connor,
right, yeah, he
I'm
doesn't
like,
seem like a warrior.
I'm like,
No.
this guy is.
It's like a little
Hey,
shrimp, man.
he's
Like
like-
he's super skinny. He looks like he weighs like 150 pounds.
It's like this guy's hanging on by the seat of his pants.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about that overall, but it is a shocking difference between Connor and Duncan. Because
Yeah.
no question, Duncan's in that. I am like a perfect warrior.
yeah.
I think that it would have been better if maybe they delved into like that dichotomy a little more. Like we actually don't find that much out about Connor ever. Right, exactly. So I mean, like if they had set up like that, this one guy is this like, well, they do set up that he's like the perfect warrior, as Ramirez eventually says, versus this guy that is just trying to kind of make his way for himself and like is meek and like they don't set up the opposite character for McLeod. He's just not that. Like
Right.
they don't give it
Yeah.
extra meaning,
And
which
also,
they could.
Also, just in terms of like not knowing this guy, this movie has much more of like this noir feel.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
like you're just dropped in. You're seeing this guy who's like morally, I think throughout the entire movie remains morally ambiguous.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah, I like that about
you
it.
just kind of deal with him.
Yeah.
Like you don't get this big expository look at him. You're just seeing the story unfold.
He is in a way kind of like a Philip Marlowe-esque character, where Marlowe is kind of always plopped into a situation that he kind of deals with, and he does kind of walk a line of, I'm doing this because I have to.
Yeah,
kind of
that's one of the biggest trademarks of like noir. Is like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily like feel for the character, but
Right.
you're like on a journey with them and like
You just deal with it.
just
Yeah.
deal with it. Yeah.
So it creates this sharp contrast with like the mumble mouth like noir overviews that like Duncan does
Yeah.
in some of the episodes of Highlander.
While
Whereas
he's
this,
meditating or
yeah, which feels like weird and out of place. Whereas here, like we are kind of in this like it's like this genre mashup. It's like this fantasy noir, which
Yeah. No, and it like
which
and
I
that's-
think I'm on board.
Oh yeah,
with.
totally.
Like, I think that should be more of a thing, maybe. But I don't know that I've ever seen anything else that melds those two genres quite that way.
No.
There's, I would say like Blade Runner is like,
Yeah.
and this movie
that's
actually is not a lot of like shots that like there's some like neon sign stuff that's like reflections, and I'm like, oh, this is very like Blade Runner-y noir, like the wet streets, like with the rain. I'm like, this feels like that. I think Blade Runner is the closest to like.
But again, I
putting
think
two weird genres together like that.
Sci-fi noir, maybe because of Blade Runner, now are linked. Maybe Blade Runner was what blazed that trail, but that's a thing that exists.
Sure.
And like the trope of like the sci-fi detective is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know that there's a trope of like the fantasy magic noir character. Like there's no Harry Potter noir.
Right.
So Connor gets immediately stopped by the cops. He like rolls out in his sweet convertible. He's like pumping the brakes. He's
There's a ton of
soaking
cops.
wet.
Yeah.
And there's a horde of police there, and they immediately stop him.
Yeah. And so they pull him out of his car, and he's not really cooperating. But here's something weird for new viewers who don't know anything about Highlander. They take his wallet out, and they're like, oh, okay, Mr. Nash, where are you going in such a hurry? And we've already, well, I guess it could be Nash McLeod, or McLeod Nash, I don't know. But it's like, is this
No,
confusing?
they've called him Connor.
Oh, right,
They
in the
have called him
flashback,
Connor.
yeah.
We know
Right, yeah.
that at least the person in the flashback is Connor McLeod.
Yeah, so is this confusing to people?
I had that same note written down. I was like, oh, like, what does this mean? Like, it's like, I guess he has two names, or like,
Yeah.
again, it's one of those sort of mysteries that's not spelled out like as clearly as I think it would be today. Like, this would be.
This is, you
more
figure it
artfully
out.
done. Yeah, you do figure it out. But
Eventually,
it's
but
a mystery than the movie gives to you.
I don't know. This is what I was trying very hard to, again, give myself zero information. I feel like I'm on board with this, though.
Yeah.
No, like I feel like in the moment I would probably get it. Maybe I'm cutting myself slack there, but I feel like I would get that he uses a fake name because he's immortal.
Yeah.
So these guys are super intense. This one cop who I just call like asshole cop.
He's Garfield.
Yeah.
Garfield?
Garfield
That's
is the name of the
Garfield,
cop.
yes. He's so intense. So
Yeah.
he questions him like he's a little more violent than I think he would need to be.
Right.
Like he would be if a cop today was doing that, there would be a lot of people with cell phones out recording him
Yeah.
and putting that on
Yeah.
YouTube.
It's not that bad. I mean, the things that get recorded and put on YouTube involve like people getting punched in the
I
head
guess
and
so.
stuff.
But
like he puts them up against the car.
He
a
roughs him
little
up a
roughly.
little. He roughs him up a little.
Also, we should pause for a second and talk about the setting of this movie. Just because
Yeah.
21st century New York in 2016, where the rents are outrageously high, it's the palace of the super rich. In 1986 New York, like this is like the Gomorrah. This is like falling apart. Massive flight from the city. All the news reports are about how New York is tearing itself apart. The mindset and the relation to crime and things like that are different. Like, let's not forget that we're thinking about like movies like Escape from New York was
totally.
made not too far before this movie, which is literally predicting in the 90s it will be a penal colony.
Right.
Like, there's this narrative around the city of New York and a lot of American cities about the way crime is going to literally tear it apart.
Yeah.
So these kinds of themes that are developed in this movie, like the Kurgan is an example of this, like chaos reigns, is like a theme that you see in movies from like the late 70s and the 80s of just like chaos for its own sake. And this relationship with criminals is like kind of very different than we think about it today. So just kind of put that skin on the whole thing.
No, I like your comparison to like Gomorrah from the Bible. Oh, more Bible references.
Yeah, we're
no, but I mean like Times Square before Disney bought all of it was like the
Just notorious.
Notorious
Like, yeah.
is like it's like Mos Eisley, like the wretched hive
Hive
of scum and villainy.
Yeah.
Like it was all sex shops. Like there's still a lot of sex shops.
Well, yeah, but they're
around
pushed
it.
out further.
They're pushed out a little further.
Yeah.
The city was falling apart. Like the infrastructure of the city was collapsing. The police structure, like nothing was going well. Gang warfare, all this sort of stuff in the Bronx. was a mess. So
Yeah,
this is a good reflection of really what the times were like, and I mean an exaggerated version of it, but New York was not a good place to be in the 80s at all.
Yeah, and it's just a thing to pause on, because here in 2016, it's a fantastic place where it's like, oh, do you make $120,000? You're middle class in New York. Where, like, at this period, it's a kind of period of darkness for the city.
So do we want to play this clip?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's play this clip of the cop, Garfield, arresting Lambert.
Put your hands on the hood!
Now, in this clip, these people the cops have their guns drawn immediately.
Yeah.
Like for a car leaving a parking lot.
Well, assuming they know that a man's been decapitated, which I don't know how they'd know that fast.
Come on, move!
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering, did they think a bomb went off?
That would be interesting. And yes, they should think that.
Especially if this movie was made
See some
today.
ID, pal. Well, Mr. Nash, where were you going in such a hurry? Give me it, give me it, give me it!
Like, he just punched him.
Yep.
Like, there is no question in my mind he's going...
Pal, don't even breathe.
So this cop has just put a gun to this man's temple and cocked
Yep.
the trigger back. That's insane.
That is in
this
fact
guy is
insane.
off
Yep.
the rails.
Yep.
This cop is like a maniac.
One quick note about his car. So Connor's driving an Aston Martin, James Bond's like quintessential vehicle. I wonder if there's a connection there.
I wonder.
Because Christopher Lambert was almost James Bond.
Yeah.
I like the shot of him driving out of the
was
garage.
good.
Like they
Yeah.
mount the camera like to the back of the car, which it's a fun shot. I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
There are a lot of fun shots in this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like in a lot of movies today, I don't pause often and go, oh, that's a cool shot.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like things are a little safer and, like, I don't know, maybe it's because of the CG aspect of things. Like, you don't stop as often and think, like, oh, they had to mount a camera to something and, like, do this whole project. Like, they just animated some shit.
And in some ways, I don't mean to use this like too disparagingly, but like style over substance in a lot of parts of this movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of pizzazz and like finesse with the camera work and like what's going on. Like, I think it's used to good effect, but sometimes it's like I don't know exactly what's going on here, but okay, like you just kind of are along for the ride.
Yeah. But again, this is another moment where, like, for a fairly low-budget movie, this is a pretty well-made production.
They get a lot of mileage out of this stuff, and I think a lot of that is a testament to Russell McKay. Like he was from working on music videos, like where you have again a low budget, and especially the early days of music videos, you didn't have a lot of time to put this like 3-minute video together. So like they would churn out a video in like 2 days, and they would be working like 16-hour days. And apparently, when he came onto this shoot, he was like in that mindset, and it's like they were working like over a dozen hours a day, and like he had to be like have a talking to, like, hey, like, let's cool it. Like, everyone can't handle your pace. But I think also it's used to, like, good effect. They don't have a huge budget on this, and so he's able to get, like, a lot of stuff done for not much money and time. It's like, let's just churn it out. Like, we can do it. So I think it's cool. And actually, in that shot we just played the clip from, that was actually in New York, which is cool. Like, but they only spent 2 weeks in New York. The rest was all filmed on London sound stages and in Scotland.
So actually, based on the back of the clip we just did, the camera pans to the left through the siren, and it's another one of these great transitions back to Scotland. Like, this is an element of the movie the show really visually picks up on, the way they transition from past to present, and the movie just really nails it.
Yeah.
Like, all these transitions are solid.
Yeah, they're great. And there's a quote from Russell McKay about the transitions. She said he wanted it to feel like time travel, like that you were actually being transported through something, like through the film itself to another place. And I think he does a good job, because it's not just a cut. Like, it's like you are like transported by these like pans and like, because the scene doesn't change. It just pans over to a new time, essentially, which is cool.
Yeah.
Though it is worth noting, we have been in the present for about 90 seconds, and now we're back in the past again.
Yes.
The cuts at this point in the movie are so fast between past and present. There's like a huge portion of the early part of this movie that's all in the past.
Yeah.
And we just like visit the present for like half a second.
Right. If you're a Highlander fan like we are, you probably have some pretty cool Highlander swag from back in the good old Highlander heydays. But did you know there are brand new Highlander sword replicas available through the official Highlander Facebook page? Head over to the official Highlander Facebook page for beautiful high-quality replicas of Duncan MacLeod's Musashi Samurai Sword, or check out Connor MacLeod's beautiful Genai Samurai. Handles are made with a nearly unbreakable Kevlar carbon compound and are complete with all the detail you remember from the Highlander film and television series. The handmade katana blades were created using high carbon steel. The blades are heat tempered, then water quenched for a consistent hardness, and then adorned with a Hammond tempered line to create a truly awesome display sword and tribute to the Highlander franchise. Stop on by the official Highlander Facebook page to order your Highlander swords today.
It's sundown at the castle, and there's some sad bagpipe music playing. So this is a post-battle. They managed to get out in one shape or form.
Right. Connor, not so much. He is lying on a bed, just dying.
Yeah.
And so they're over him, and I guess they've kind of come to the realization they can't do anymore.
Yeah, which at this point, that priest from earlier now has his hood off. He's got like a mohawk.
Yeah,
what is going on
Yeah.
here? It's an insane look for this man.
Yep.
So, and his girlfriend that we saw earlier give him the flowers. In the European cut, or director's cut, she's back and she's crying over him for losing him.
Mm-hmm.
But it also should be noted that there's like lightning. Like apparently, this scene was actually supposed to take place outside, but it was pouring, and so they decided to do it inside. But again, there's like they actually set it with a storm, and there's lightning flashes, and so there's this electricity element again. And at this point, I was actually thinking, I wonder what the stigma is between like electricity and like life and all this sort of stuff. It kind of reminded me of Frankenstein. I was like, oh, there's another kind of like myth that is like the dead are risen by electricity, and like that gives them new life. And I was like, oh, there's kind of this. That's certainly something that's in the
zeitgeist of returning from the dead.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I love now the transition back to the present. This is one of my favorites. Like, you're seeing his body, and then all of a sudden you get a bunch of flashes, and then you come
Which
to
is the
realize,
lightning.
I
Yeah,
guess it's the
the
lightning in there, and then it transitions to the present, and those same flashes are going on Facile's body, but now it's the police taking
Right. Their camera,
pictures. The camera flashes on his body. This is like that's
It's
a
really
gem.
good. It's
That's
really
a
good.
really good shot. But again, we were now in the past for how long do you think we were there? A minute?
Yeah.
And now we're
Yeah.
back to the present again. Like the kind of fluidity between the periods is cool.
And also, I was trying to take note. Like, there definitely seems to be like a connection between the two. Like, they're almost kind of going in tandem with each other. Like, we get the battle in the beginning, which is like the wrestling match / sword fight. Then we are transitioned to the battlefield, and like so like they're always kind of connected. And then, like you said, Kyle, there's this flashback to the death of Connor, and then there's the flash forward, and it's the death of Fazil. Like, so they're always kind of related, I think, in some manner.
Then this scene happens, and there's some very odd dialogue and choices around this future scene. So we're about to meet the love interest.
Brenda J. Wyatt.
So we also meet the this bald cop, who John Polito is the actor's name.
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot of IMDb credits too.
Yeah.
But I think the role that I was most familiar with, he is the other private detective in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Right.
You
I was
know,
going to say, the thing I remember him from a lot is The Rocketeer.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
What's he, Maloney? Or what?
He's like the gangster.
I forget
Yeah.
his name now in that. Yeah, he's the one gangster in that. But he's in a ton.
He's in Miller's Crossing. He plays a major role in that movie. The Coen brothers use him a lot. Yeah.
Tons. I looked actually for research for this movie. I was like, oh, is he also in the new movie Hail Caesar, which is also with Christophe Lambert and Clancy Brown? Because I was like, that would be amazing because
Yeah.
they use him all the time. Sadly, he's not. Because that'd be three
bummer.
people from this
Yeah.
movie that are reunited.
But we're introduced to this character. He goes, "You look pretty, Brenda."
Yeah.
Yeah, so this scene definitely sets up like the cops have like no respect for her. I
Yeah.
would say both as a scientist and a woman, like because they make some sexist remarks. Like they're not into her at all.
No, they're into her too much.
Oh, okay,
It's
I guess
weird.
that's it. Yeah,
She's chewing
Not
them
as a
out.
human being, but as an object.
Yeah.
Right.
She's chewing them out because she's in forensics. They didn't call her first, so
right.
they might be mucking things up here.
And then Garfield, who's an asshole, is like, "Oh, what do you think the cause of death is?" Which I actually thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like,
This
'cause
one
it's
came
obviously-
disassembled.
And introduced something interesting that apparently in North Jersey earlier, like someone else was decapitated.
Right.
Right.
So that's interesting. So like the game is ongoing and like other people are participating in it, and assumably like the Kurgan killed somebody in North Jersey, in like Hoboken the other day.
So then Brenda also inquires if they've arrested somebody, which they have, Nash or Connor, and that he's an antiques dealer. And Brenda finds a sword.
How does nobody notice this?
I know.
Yeah.
It's just like there's just a gorgeous like gem
like
encrusted
Yeah.
sword. As we find out later, is a Toledo Salamanca, or as
Yeah.
I wrote down in my notes, a Toledo salami. Like she just sees it. She finds what she reveals to be $1 million broadsword.
Yep. And she knows what this sword is by sight. So that's another interesting tidbit on her character.
Yeah, I'll just mention a tidbit on the Toledo Salamanca. Is this a real sword? Oh, it's not at all. So this is like it's an inside joke. So Toledo refers to the source of the hilt of the sword. It was made in Spain by one of the large manufacturers there of like swords. And then the blade was made by Dr. Jim Risulis, who owns Salamander Armory. So Salamanca is salamander in Spanish. So they just named it after where they got the pieces from the sword. And I believe actually they got a lot of swords for the TV show, I think, from that Spanish producer as well. I think they were the people that made some of them.
Neat.
There's your little Toledo Salamanca trivia, everybody.
Yeah. Also, it's worth noting that the other lead detective from this, who the only other notable IMDb credit I had from this guy was that he was in Police Squad.
Oh, Alan North.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every time he's in this movie, I can't help but think of Police Squad because he is the like sergeant or whatever in that show. If you haven't seen Police Squad, totally watch it. It's the best. It's what
Leslie Nielsen.
It's what the Naked Gun movies are based on. It's only 6 episodes, but each one of them is gold.
On his way to go see this sword that Brenda notices and no one else does, he trips on the body.
Yeah. Doesn't he spill his coffee on it?
Yeah. That's what he's upset about.
Yeah.
Like, he's not upset that he just kicked a corpse. He's upset that he spilled a little coffee.
Yeah.
Like, is he included in our running tab of police officers? We got Bennett. We got Stars.
Stars for life. That's actually what Keith has tattooed on his knuckles. What do you think you're in, Beirut?
The cops are forming this theory now that since Nash McLeod is an antiques dealer, this is an antique deal gone extremely bad. This is high stakes antiquing right here, folks.
Look, it's $1 million sword. Like
It's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. And I was actually very curious if I was like, are swords worth $1 million? There are some swords worth $1 million. I don't know that from that period, it's like ancient Chinese weapons worth $1 million. But, it can get up there in price.
So we're now in the police station, and we get this kind of amazing interrogation.
Yeah.
This is on a whole other level.
Yep.
So first they ask, they show him a picture of, we don't see who this is, but it's presumably the person that was decapitated in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And so of course they bash Jersey, because every movie has to bash Jersey.
You ever get to Jersey, Nash?
Not if I can help it.
So then they're like...
We are presently recording this in New Jersey.
Yes.
Cheers to New
Cheers.
Jersey.
So they're like, you talk funny. Well, it's also, this is interesting. This is the very first scene that Connor recorded with that he recorded. So
this is also the first time Connor says a full sentence.
Yes. So his accent is insane. So let's talk a little bit. We didn't talk about this when we introduced, I guess, Christophe Lambert in our introductions of the character, but he was born in New York.
Yeah.
But, he was not an American citizen, because I think his father was a diplomat or something.
Yes, his father is a diplomat.
A French diplomat. But he grew up in, France and Switzerland. So anyway, he has an extremely strange accent to begin with. And when they hired him for this movie, they just assumed he spoke English. And he doesn't speak any of it. The fact that this is the very first scene they recorded... his accent in this scene in particular is, even more weird, I think, than in other parts of this movie. Because he is, grasping it. This is all phonetically spoken. But they kind of write it. They're like, oh, you talk funny. And he's they're like, where are you from? And he's like, lots of different places. I think that's a really clever thing. I mean, it's, kind of bullshit, but it's okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, I think. That makes sense within the rules of this world.
He said in his dialogue coaching that they tried to develop an accent that was non-specific. I guess this counts as that.
I
don't know.
call bullshit on that. I
Yeah.
think that's something they told to everyone that asked that question. I don't buy that was their attempt. Like
That this is just what came out. and
this
they
is.
ran
I
with
think
it?
this is what
Yeah.
came out of that, and they were like, "Well, it sounds non-specific, so we'll go with that."
Yeah.
It's like I'm okay with all of that, but I don't think this was like intentionally like let's try to get a weird accent because I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
I don't buy that that's what they were trying to do. So Nash is not the guy from New Jersey, or he has no idea what the deal is with that. So then I love this. So the detective Alan North, whose name is Frank, which his last name is Moran. I was like, is his name Moron? Like, is that what this is? Like,
Yeah.
he's a moron. Frank Moran, he shows him a sword. And he's like, do you have any idea what this is? And Lambert's like, a sword?
Question mark.
It's pretty great. Although we'll talk about this more as we get to know the character throughout the movie. But like, I find they have a hard time kind of characterizing him. Like, I'm not sure. Like in this scene, he is like a complete smartass.
Yeah.
Slash like he's kind of a dick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure what he is, and perhaps part of that's part of the performance. Like that the smartassery kind of comes off as a little like just weird and dickish and like strange. It feels like the way the dialogue is written, he should be more Han Solo than like creepy man. Like,
Well, no. So I think he is like the character is that he's like a rascal. I think that's supposed to be like part of this thing. Like he's more Han Solo than anything else. And like that's who he's supposed to be. The movie doesn't really give this character a lot of chances to sing. And I think one of the things that's fascinating is that seeing this movie like 3 times in preparation for this gave me more of an appreciation for the pilot of the series, The Gathering. Because I honestly think you have a stronger sense of who this character is from the pilot than you do from this entire movie.
Yeah.
Like, you really do. And in the pilot, it's clear that Connor's a hero. In this,
Nope.
not really.
No.
Not so much. But in that, like, it's clear that he has, like, a goal. His goal is to hunt down evil immortals to make sure that someone evil doesn't win the prize, and that's his
Right.
thing. Like, it's clear that he's, like, kind of a joker and a rascal and a romantic, and, like, that's his personality. That's really not necessarily clear in this. I think this scene is probably the most character building we get from this character.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of odd, but I kind of buy it. Like,
Right.
But I think this is honestly what they wanted, and it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily sing elsewhere.
it's hard to like. I didn't know watching this like how to react, because again, like our only like views of this character are him like beheading someone,
Yeah.
him resisting arrest, like
at this point in the series,
and now he's funny, and it's like, oh, is he funny? Like, is he the funny character?
Yeah.
Like, am I supposed to be like? You're throwing a bunch of different images of this guy.
we just don't get enough character development for him to truly be anything in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's very true that at this point in this movie, we've seen him behead a guy, we've seen him be stabbed, and we've seen him punch a cop. That's all we've seen him do. We've seen him do those 3 things. So I don't know how we're supposed to feel about him at any given point in time.
Right.
But I think he's funny in this scene.
So they have the police have this theory that this is a antique steel gone wrong, and then I like Connor's theory, which is like, let me tell you my theory is that this guy saw a bunch of shitty wrestling and decided to kill himself.
Yeah.
That's
Chop
really
off
funny.
his own head. Yeah.
Like, I think they kind of nailed this. They nailed what the voice of this character was supposed to be in this scene.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they nail it again for the rest of the movie. But I'm on board for seeing this guy in this moment.
Yeah. It's a great scene.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But then,
A third theory. Yeah.
so we can play. Should we play this little clip?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, I just don't want to say the words that are used in this scene, so...
You a faggot, Nash?
Why, Garfield? You cruising for a piece of ass?
I'll tell you what happened, Russell. You went down to the garage for a blowjob. Just didn't want to pay for it.
You are sick.
So, other hallmark of older movies is saying...
The F word.
what is now
Yeah.
the F word.
I
Because
call that
fuck
the
is
F
no
word.
longer the F
Yeah,
word.
Yeah.
Two things. I love this scene. Like we've talked about some noir elements, and it's like this feels very noir to me. Like
Yeah.
questioning, like this is classic noir stuff.
Yeah, and also just in terms of, like, we're obviously dancing around, like, the fact that this scene's like a little bit offensive today.
A lot.
Yeah. Sorry,
This would not be in a movie today.
Yeah.
Not because of any sort of rating thing, but it would just be like, no, we're just like, nobody would be writing this scene. Or if they did, it would be because they're trying to illustrate how, like,
that the cop is bigoted.
the cop is the biggest piece of shit.
Yeah.
The cop is now the biggest villain in this movie.
Right.
As opposed to being kind of like a neutral character.
Yeah.
Which the cops are in this. So.
But it's worth hanging a lantern on, like, interesting point in time, how okay this was.
Absolutely.
And, like, the level of fear around this is also not too long after kind of the emergence in the public perception of AIDS and things like that, and the stigmas that created. So, I don't know, just in terms of a moment in cinema, it's
Definitely.
worth pausing to, like, see this is almost the cultural zeitgeist around this. Because I don't think this is out of lockstep with anything going on in the mid-'80s.
No.
Not even a little bit. Like, if you see an Eddie Murphy stand-up routine from this period,
Oh,
like,
boy.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
like,
boy.
this was within the median
Yeah.
of what's going on. So that's interesting. But why does the punching start? Like, this
Because
guy,
he calls him gay.
Why, Garfield, you cruising for a piece of ass?
yeah, but then the follow-up, the moment that precedes the punching is he just goes, "You're sick," and then
And it
it
erupts.
goes right for punching. It's like, I almost felt like there was a missing bit of dialogue. You know what I mean? Like,
This is also a cop that put a gun to his head and
Yeah.
cocked it.
Well,
Like,
the whole scene too. Garfield and Mac are exchanging weird stares and glances, and Garfield can't keep his gaze with McLeod.
which
So-
I don't think I could do that with Christopher Lambert either.
yeah. Like McLeod is like staring daggers into Garfield, and Garfield can't stand up to him.
Yeah,
So-
which is cool. I
Yeah,
mean, that's a
it
cool
is.
moment. But then
It is.
Mac goes like right for a kidney punch.
Yeah.
And then he punches Polito.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, he punches two cops in
Yeah,
this
and
scene.
Polito flies across the room. Like,
so when he's like, "Am I under arrest?" The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're under arrest.
no, they let him go. Like,
Yeah.
what reality is this?
So I guess they don't want him to sue the cops.
When
because this guy obviously had no business Garfield had no business trying to take a swing at him.
Yeah. One interesting thing I wanted to note about this scene is in the script, he goes into the garage for a hand job. And in the movie, they change it to a blow job. Also, the way he says blow job.
Blammer jammer.
Yeah, a blammer jammer. He went to the garage for a blammer jammer.
I also have another thing to add to this scene. I'm going to be sprinkling in these other interpretations of this movie, and I'll recap all this at the end. But another thing I thought was interesting here, again, we've seen a little bit of what could be construed as, like, gay subtext. In this scene, the shitty cop is like, "What are you, F-word?" And Connor does not say no to that at all. And I was like, interesting. There's no denial of that in this scene. And I was like, interesting. If we're going to read it in this homoerotic subtext, that might mean something.
I just don't buy it that much because we see him with 3 separate female love interests.
Oh, I know. But again, there's different views of what this movie could mean under the surface. And so I'm just going to point it out along the way. That's all.
All right.
Hey, fellow rewatchers. Thanks again for joining us for our second installment of our Highlander Motion Picture Podcast. Join us next week for episode 3 as we delve even further into the Highlander mythology when we talk about the Kurgan sword design, Michael Kamen's score, Scotch, and a lot more. Thanks again for listening. See you next week. We've been your rewatchers, Keith, Kyle, and Eamon. Bye.
No. I mean, we can.
Start over because I'm cutting that.
I mean, we can talk about that if you want, but like.